So this is Ladbroke Grove station, and I've come here to make a video about the ramblings of an old Ladbroke Grove boy. I lived here from the age of 10 months until I left before I was 8 years old. So that's nearly 57 years ago. So I've come back to my old stomping grounds to see what's changed and to record my memories before they disappear from my aging brain and my body eventually. I'm doing it mostly for myself, but maybe my kids will enjoy it one day, and I'll probably put it on YouTube. You never know, someone might be interested. I got the idea for it, I think, a couple of years ago. On YouTube I saw a video where somebody, a woman, went back to her town where she'd been born and drove around all of her familiar areas. That's in Galveston, Texas. And although there wasn't a lot to see really, it was very nostalgic, and I enjoyed hearing her talk about where she'd been. So you never know, there might be somebody in Texas who actually enjoys this one. So Ladbroke Grove station here. In that direction is Notting Hill, and the sort of richer area goes up towards Holland Park, Kensington Gardens, Hyde Park, all that area if you go left. It's all in the London borough of Kensington and Chelsea. And the other direction becomes less wealthy as you go down. And so this being a history of my infancy, we'll be going down the poor direction. So I'll start walking now. It's quite a cosmopolitan area. And I moved here as a 10-month-old baby with my mum and dad, as I was the oldest. The area was mixed. I think up towards this part there were a lot of West Indians who'd recently come over. In fact, somewhere up this kind of direction there was the famous Notting Hill riots, which was dissatisfaction among some of the West Indians. But it's a mixed area. It was mixed in the population. The people didn't tend to mix. So it looks fairly well mixed, but hopefully without any of the racial problems. The houses are all fine, old, quite large Victorian ones. I apologise if the sound isn't very good. got a OnePlus 6T phone here, and you can't easily connect an external microphone. I bought whatever fittings I thought were required, followed a YouTube video, but I still couldn't get the external microphone to work, so I'm having to use the built-in one. See, all these houses have the same sort of design. They have a basement, a few steps up to the ground floor, and another couple of floors above that and even a sort of attic floor. This part hasn't really changed in the 57 years since I left it. I think the houses are better cared for now. At this end, the houses were always a bit nicer. Now, Ladbroke Grove station was not somewhere I ever reached by myself or with friends when I was 5 or 6. The limit of my wanderings was probably around this church. Is it St Gabriel's? I can't remember now. So I had friends, Gary and Robert Purcell, who lived not too far along from here. Yeah, Church of England Church. That's St Michael and All Angels. Well, includes Gabriel, I suppose. We're just coming into my stomping ground as a 5 to 7 year old. I think Gary and Robert used to live in 220, which is just over there. Now, Ladbroke Grove goes down from Notting Hill, goes all the way down towards Kensington Rise. I don't know what point it peters out. This is now a fire station. That wasn't there when I was young. Yeah, I left this place in October 1964 to move to Northampton, and we came back once a couple of weeks later. Then the next time I came back was after I'd learnt to drive, and I was early 20s, and I was amazed at how small everything had got. The area had shrunk. The little run between our house and the zebra crossing, which used to seem about 150 yards, was now about 20. That's the Eagle pub, which was the second nearest pub. got a feeling the kids left to stand outside there, or maybe it was just outside with our mum. Well, my dad had a drink. My mum and dad were Irish immigrants. Mum came over in 48 as an 18-year-old working, and my dad came over in 42 in the middle of the war. Not the greatest time to come, and he was only 13 at the time. So yeah, this was back in the days when properties to rent quite often had a sign, something like no coloureds, no Irish, no children. We had, after Mum and Dad had me as a baby, they were they were sharing a house on North Circular Road with another couple, and they managed to get 308 Ladbroke Grove because my dad was working in CAVs with another Irish man called Paddy Burke, good Irish name, and he was already renting 308 down here, and one floor became available. Now, see 290, 292, 294, 296, 298, so 308 would have been, we were second from the end. So they demolished 6 houses. 1, 2, 3, 6. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can see it's probably like a 25, 30 yards they've demolished. They did that quite a long time ago, and they built this lovely development over there. So attractive. So yeah, through Paddy Burke we managed to get to share the house. Now these are all the same design, so I can sort of just point at one and it'll be the same. So a few steps up and we lived on the ground floor. There was no separation of the area, so if you went just straight up the stairs inside, you'd be on the second and third, first and second floors, and that's where Paddy, his wife Stacia, their children were Johnny, Spud, Tommy, Teddy, the boys. They're all in their 20s, except for Teddy, who was probably about 15. And their 2 daughters, Sheila and Jean. Jean was, I don't know, 1 or 2 years older than me. Sheila is another couple of years older. So we lived on the ground floor. The basement was derelict. On the ground floor there was the front room, which you can see there in the front. Nice high ceilings, quite a large room. And beyond that was the bedroom, the 1 bedroom, and sort of alongside that was a small squarish kitchen overlooking effectively a rubbish dump, and long clotheslines were strung out to the other side. And the other side was Portobello Road, which runs roughly parallel with Ladbroke Grove. He actually used to come and meet it just up there, just past where that bus is. Portobello Road, Warnington Road and Ladbroke Grove used to join. Now the end has been blocked off by this development. So my mum used to keep the place really nice. It was it was very run down when we got there, she says, and she had it all really, really nice, nice new furniture and everything. The basement, there was just like an open entrance to go down the stairs to the basement, pretty much like you see in all the horror films, really. There was no electricity. It was dark. I think I went down there once with my dad. I can't remember what for, and it's pretty scary. If I did anything wrong, my mum would always say, "Oh, the bogeyman will get you," and I always believed that the bogeyman was down in the basement, so that was a bit terrifying to a 5-year-old or less. And I never tried to scare my own children in that way because I knew what it was like. So yeah, we didn't have a toilet. We shared the toilet. It was up the first flight of stairs, just the toilet. We didn't have a bathroom. As children, we were washed at the kitchen sink, and Mum and Dad used to go to the public baths once a week to actually have a bath. A couple of years ago, I brought my mum here. She was in a wheelchair then. She died last October, and I wheeled her around all much the same places that I'll be going today. And afterwards I said that people these days would have considered where we lived a slum, and she got a bit upset by that because she kept the place really nice. So inside it was very well turned out, but my reference was to the basement being derelict, sharing a house, not having a toilet. You know, I think that qualifies for slum these days. So yes, remember sitting on the steps very often when I was a kid. I guess now 308 would have been just past that bus stop, I think. As Portobello Road came to meet Ladbroke Grove at the end there, it narrowed, and next to where we lived was one house where two older boys, Brian and Elvie, lived, and then there was a small shop which later got taken over by a European. I don't know where from, East European, maybe Hungarian, because there was a lot of people fled from Hungary after 1956 uprising. Many of them worked with my dad. So whoever it was that took it over from an English woman. I remember the smells, the exotic smells, were just nothing I'd smelt before. So I don't know what it was. It wasn't curry. So yeah, and after the shop, on the corner was a little, I don't know, maybe a little factory. It's a little place where they put together jukebox machines, and so they were always unpacking machines out of boxes, and nails were left on the pavement. And when I was a toddler, I was allowed to. That was where I was allowed to play during the day, just out on the pavement. And I'd pick up all these nails for my dad to use. I probably thought I was being helpful. I'm sure he was just throwing them away. People who worked in the little factory, or whatever it was, they were really nice. I remember once one of them came with me to ask my mum if it was okay if he got me a Christmas present, and he bought me a great big metal truck. You don't get metal trucks these days, it's all plastic. So that was really good. And I remember another time getting a toy aeroplane on wheels. Another time, one of them came and asked my mum could he take me to the rubbish dump in his big lorry. So yeah, she let me. Very trusting in those days, weren't they? So yeah, used to run up to the end of the road. When Brian and Elvie were leaving, sometime before us, I think they'd been told they had to get rid of all their toys. Don't know where they were going. And what they did was get me and 2 or 3 friends to have races up and down this short patch, probably like 30 yards. And they would give one a toy to the winner, but then they found it was my older friend Gary, who was quicker than me, even though I was quick, and he was always winning, so they wouldn't declare how they were going to allocate the prize until after the race, and they'd say, oh, it's the slowest one that was going to win that. So they managed to spread them out fairly. Yeah, in those days you spent all of your time on the pavements and in the streets as children. That was how we met friends. We had friends from school, but we met friends on the street. And I remember, apart from Gary and Robert, I remember a mixed race boy called Patrick. He wasn't very reliable. There was also a black boy who was maybe a couple of years older. He's great big boy. He was called Slinger. He was pretty dark black, and he was a lovely boy, you know. And he really liked my younger sister, Sue, a couple of years younger than me. So yeah, we met people on the street. There was a dog called Michael, a black, lean, short-haired dog. Don't know what sort, probably a mongrel. And he was actually one of my friends. He used to hang out with us. We'd be wandering the streets. He was obviously owned by somebody. I don't think we gave him the name Michael. And he used to just come with us wherever we were playing and disappear at the end of the day. So across the road from us, well, over here, I think it was the shop on the left was a newsagent then, called Bill Kane's. And next to that there was a greengrocer, and the only reason I remember the greengrocer is on fireworks night, 5th of November, my dad bought a few fireworks, probably like about 6 and 2 or 3 rockets, not big like they are now, and he used to let the rockets go by placing the stick in a milk bottle and lighting the fuse. And one of them just went, the bottom must have fallen down. One of them went straight across this street, straight into the greengrocer, which was closed at the time, luckily. yes, we used to manage to get coloured matches, you know, ones that flare up in different colours, and we'd somehow get hold of sparklers and various things like that. One day I had a sparkler and I wanted to light it, and so I brought it indoors and tried to light it on our 1-bar electric fire in the front room. The sparkler's just being basically a piece of wire with stuff that sparkled when it was lit. So when I touched the wire to the bar, I heard a big bang, and that was the end of our fire. It could probably have been the end of me, actually, but there you go, managed to live. Another near-death experience was when I ate a gobstopper. Well, I was sucking a gobstopper. These were large, round, hard balls that you couldn't bite. They just slowly dissolved in your mouth as you licked them, and it got stuck in my throat. And my mum had to, luckily she was there, my mum had to hold me upside down by the legs and whack me on the back to dislodge it. Otherwise I'd probably have died from that as well. So I could only die once. Over this side, these 2 blocks, these were our skyscrapers. I believe there's 10 floors, because we, as kids, we went over here at least once or twice to play in the lifts. Mechanisation wasn't very big in the early 60s. Even the automatic doors for supermarkets and supermarkets themselves hadn't been invented, not in England. And so to get in a lift and press buttons and get it moving, that was fantastic. I almost feel like having a go now. So, I'm sure there's, well, if anything comes to me about this particular area, I'll say it later. It'll be a bit boring showing you the same building the whole time. So over here, Barby Road used to be across the road from where Portobello Road joined it, and that's Barby Road. Let's see if we can, yep, manage to live. So where I lived was probably around here. New buildings look so much nicer, don't they? And so, well, you can see over there that's still the same. That's where Portobello Road joined Ladbroke Grove, and opposite Barby Road. I think this zebra crossing was quite near the end here at this time. I think that's been moved down. So when I was 5, I started school, and at some point, not quite sure when, but obviously 7 at the latest, I would go to school by myself. Now this junction here was quite wide, probably from around here to there, with an island in the middle to cross. And I used to cross it myself on the way to school. Barby Road down there. If you follow that down all the way, you'll end up near the Scrubs, Wormwood Scrubs. over here, I remember there used to be a deli. There was a sweet shop as well, delicatessen, where I'd often be told by my mum to go and get some green streaky bacon, and he would cut it off using one of those round metal cutters, whatever they are, with the handle. And behind the back, just around the corner in Portobello Road, was a tobacconist newspaper shop or whatever, and my mum would often ask me to go round and pick up 20 weights, which was a brand of cigarette. So I'd go round and get cigarettes for her. Probably not approved of these days in so many ways. Now we're coming up to one of the main sites of my native land. This is clearly something I'm sure Sydney tried to copy us here. Their Sydney Harbour Bridge. Maybe it's the other way around, I'm not sure. Oh, hang on, before I go over there, that bridge goes over what used to be Great Western Railway. It's a line from Paddington going out through Ealing, and just over here on this far side there's like a small patch of greenery. I don't know if it's still here. On the left here, probably not. We'll have a little look. Warnington Road goes roughly parallel to Portobello Road. Yeah, there used to be a place over there. See where the trains go now. There used to be a little area where my mum would take me, and we'd watch the passing trains and wave to them, and quite often you get drivers waving back, or a passenger maybe. It's a bit like the railway children. No, that was interesting, a plot there. So, coming up to this bridge. So this is my route to school that I used to take by myself in the morning. Well, when I got slightly older anyway. Yes, I always used to think I could climb up there. When I was that small, between 5 and 7, I used to have much better head for heights, and we would be looking to climb anything. We never did climb that, so obviously not stupid. On Saturday mornings, we used to either get bus or walk up to Kensal Rise, which I don't know how far it is, probably like 3/4 of a mile or so, because there was a cinema there, and it was very cheap for children Saturday morning, and there wasn't just films, they'd have, you know, kids on stage for various reasons, and it wasn't a feature film. You might have Tarzan or Batman, you know, a serial that went on, and cowboy film, and various other cartoons, Woody Woodpecker. Now these buildings are all new-ish, newer than me anyway. So when I first came back I was so glad to see they had kept this arch here. This part of the building, I think that's the only bit remaining, the arch, which was down these stairs I used to have to go to school. I think I'll fancy coming here at night. And this will be my route to school. In some ways it hasn't changed. I think those buildings over there are probably from about the 50s or maybe earlier. Over here these are new. Not quite sure. I think it was just plain houses, low-rise houses like those in the distance there. Now, as far as money goes, we used to be given a few pence. Well, I was given a few pence a day. There might have been three old pennies, which is 1.4 new pennies that we're using now. But it went a little bit further then. Our other main source of income was uncles, of which I had many, and most of them, every time we saw them, would give us some money. Although I don't think we got to spend a lot of it. A lot of it went into our savings for holidays and Christmas. The other big source for us was bottles, old beer bottles or lemonade bottles or whatever. In those days, they all had you had to pay a deposit when you were buying them. That was 3 old pennies. Cider bottles were big, and I think they were 6 old pennies. So if we found any on the street, we could bring them back to either the off licence or to a sweet shop, and they'd give us the deposit back. So it was a delight for us when we found a bottle on the street. We'd scour the streets just looking for bottles. Further up here is a pub. It used to have a fenced off beer garden or storage that was next to the pavement. And I remember walking past it many times and looking through the fence, could just see through it, and seeing these crates full of empty bottles. And I used to think, my God, how can I get my hands on those? It's like a gold mine. I think this is the pub. The fence might have been changed. Yeah, can't see that, but that's where it was, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, a little walk along here to the school. There's a Roman Catholic school, St Mary's. I was in the infants. And being a Catholic school in this area, I think everybody was Irish families. Oh, it's down this road. We'd see black children going to school as well, but they went to Church of England or state school. So there was no mixing at all between the races there in that way. This is St Mary's School. That's the same old building. New part there. So where I started my schooling 59, getting on 60 years ago. Over there is a little park where we used to wait in the morning before we were called into school. It was always very pretty. I remember trees in blossom, and at the far side on the left used to be a little playground. Oh, that's locked. Still looks nice, a bit of a jungle, but so yes, over here this was the school playground for infants. From that yellowy wall, that tall wall, to the building on the left, up to the fence and the road on the right, that was our playground. We used to throw tennis balls up against that wall because it's very good for the height. I think it was for buses or coaches or something, that place. But they've obviously not using it as a playground anymore. I'm sure it's a playground not long ago. Anyway, they've got nursery school there now. Yeah. This I'm glad this wall is still the same as it used to be. Well, very pretty, really. I'll have a quick look in. Yeah, they've got a playground. They've moved it down to this side. It was over the far side there. Used to be over there. Had the witch's hat, rocking horse, roundabouts. Yeah, we certainly enjoyed that. It's all much safer here now. Very attractive cloisters. The church there, I can't even remember that church. I wonder if it was there in the 50s. It looks old enough. Now the swimming baths, or well, did have swimming baths, the public baths, are over here. It might well be this red brick building. It looks about the right sort, in roughly the right position. So I think that was swimming baths. They had sort of bathrooms that you could pay to use. This was in the day before showers. So this little park was called Ensley Horniman Pleasance. Can't remember us having any name for it in those days. Oh yeah, in the school, was a Catholic school and it was quite strict. Even as like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, we were seated in rows of desks, sort of separate desks, and it was fairly strict. We weren't hit or anything like that, but we weren't allowed to sort of get up and wander around. When I moved to North Acton, I went to just a state school, Acton Wells, and the difference was striking. Children were away from their seats, sitting on the floor, moving around. It was just all so different, completely different way of teaching. I think I'm glad that I got out of the Catholic school system. I know they get some very good results and all that, but I think for independence of thought, going where I did and ending up in St Clement Danes Grammar School, which was the greatest education. I don't think I could have got a better education at a public school. So this is the church. That we went to from school, not too far. Our Lady of the Holy Souls, Kensington, Newtown. I had my first communion here, and I've got a photo of me outside here. I was 7 at the time, and I've also got a photo of the group, I think, of children who made their communion that day, the first communion. Yeah, so can't remember much about it really. Just remember the communion hosts tasting quite nice, letting them melt on my tongue. Yeah, my school, I was there from the age of 5 till 7. I had just moved into the junior school. I was there for about a month and a half before we moved, and I remember the first day in infant school. I was 5 years old, and I remember going there feeling all alone, and the teacher got us to pair up and hold hands, and I was holding the hand of another boy called Michael Linehan, and we became best friends until I left. After we left, Mum, Dad and me and the family came back. I can't remember exactly why. I suspect it was to come to this church, to maybe transfer to a different church or something like that. And I remember going around the corner there and up the road a little bit to where Michael lived, so it must have been a weekend, and we popped in to say hello, and that was the last time I saw Michael. Now, throughout my life I always wondered, what happened to the boy who'd been my best friend at school, for even though it was just for 3 years. I always wondered how he'd done. And then I think it was in either late 90s or early 2000s, Friends Reunited came out, and I thought I'd search for him, and I actually found him, and I got in touch, and the devastating thing was he couldn't remember me. I sent a photo of the communion, but it was quite early days in internet and photography, and you had to be quite good to be able to look at a JPG file or whatever, and he just couldn't do it. But I did learn that he'd done quite well, and he was a good cross-country runner, and he joined Barclays and done well there, and he actually used to go to Barclays Sports Club, which is near Hanger Lane, or was. And I used to go there with my friend because he also worked at Barclays. So quite funny to yeah. I couldn't get over that he couldn't remember me though. I think what happens is if you're very young, oh dear, if you're very young and somebody leaves, you kind of forget about them. But if it's you who's doing the leaving, it's more of a traumatic experience, and so you remember things. You remember things a lot better. I had a similar experience with another friend I had in secondary school, who I last saw when I was about 15, and we got in touch later. And there was so much that he couldn't remember about things that I could remember. Perhaps it's just me. I'm forgettable. So I'll double back down this way. I remember a lot of the names of the children in my class. Marion Harrington, Marion Casey, who was a feisty redhead, frizzy red-haired girl that seemed to be chasing me. Margaret Roach, nearly all Irish names, aren't they? There were two other Jameses, James Boyle and I think it was James Garvey. I did know Ian Robertson. I think he went to St Mary's. He was another friend. There were twin brothers, Joseph and I think John Fireman. There's the school again. I remember a Gerald who was very docile. He let me practice all my judo moves on him, which was very generous and probably quite painful. Yeah, I don't know if there's probably other names that I would recognise, but those are the ones that come to mind. I don't remember wandering up this way too often with my friends, probably because we went to school, and up here I'm not so much appeal for coming back. Nice looking pub. And then most of them are. Yeah, going to the cinema Saturday mornings. Sometimes we'd get the bus, sometimes we'd walk. We used to have to go past the cemetery, I don't know what it's called, maybe Kensal Green Cemetery. And in the autumn, was it autumn or summer, autumn, there'd be horse chestnuts falling off the trees. Loads of them in their sort of spiky shells, but spiky green shells. When you open them up, there's a beautiful like mahogany shape, coloured conker inside, and nut. It's a conker, a bit like a chestnut, but not edible. Maybe horses can eat them. Perhaps that's how they got their name. So yeah, if you're not English, you probably don't know there's a game called Conkers. What you'd do is, using a skewer or something, put a hole through the conker, the nut, put a string through that, knot it, and then take turns letting your conker hang, and the other person swinging their conker at yours, taking turns until one of them broke.
Got it.
And if your conker broke, you lost. And if your conker won, you became a oneer. And then if it won another, become a twoer, and so on up to like a tenner. Most conkers didn't get very far, and there were always lots of theories from the children how to make your conker stronger. Like they used to say, soak it in vinegar, or put it in the oven. I'm not sure any of the ideas worked. That's what we used to do. Right. It's not a very long school journey. The area hasn't changed much. Obviously there have been some buildings taken down and new blocks put up. See that awful grey block? Can't see it now. That grey block there on the corner of Barlby Road and Ladbroke Grove, that used to be a pub called the Cowshed, which is a strange name for a pub. I used to think it came from maybe the times when this was countryside and there was an old inn there. It was on the site of a cowshed. I looked it up on the internet and it actually said it used to be called something else, like I don't know, a duke of something or other, or so strange. Now I don't know if you can get through to Portobello Road from there at all now. You might be able to, but what I'll do is just go up past where I used to live and go up to the Eagle and turn left there. Yeah, a few years ago I looked up one of my friends from here who's either 1 or 2 years younger than me, Robert Purcell, and I actually managed to find him on, I don't know, Facebook or something like that, and it's nice to see you seem to be doing okay. Their dad was a bus driver. Over that way there's a lot of St. Charles naming squares and hospital. It's a hospital, St. Charles Hospital. That's where my sister went. She had pneumonia. Managed to survive it okay. No thanks to the GP that was poor enough not to spot it quickly. St. Charles's Hospital, I don't know if it's still working as a hospital. I think maybe it is. Has a bit of a spire. On top of that there used to be like a round ball, quite a large round ball. I think that got taken down. Either it got knocked down or they decided it wasn't safe enough. So now you just see a sort of blunt spire, a tower at the top. Not sure if it comes into sight down here. Oh well. Right, so we're up to the Eagle, which was an area we used to play around a lot. When I brought my mum up here, we went into the Eagle and it was quite a nice pub. We sat outside and had something to eat. Over there, when I lived here, that was an adventure playground. The fire station wasn't there. And we called it an adventure playground. It was actually originally a bomb site. So around London, even like 1960, that's 15 years after the war finished, there were quite a lot of areas where bombs had hit and demolished houses, and they hadn't been redeveloped yet. I think this was one of them, but before they built anything they made it into an adventure playground. Now no child will be allowed near an adventure playground these days. It was built with old pieces of wood. They had maybe logs holding up a rope that had a lorry tyre suspended under it that was used as a swing. Various pieces of wood nailed together that you could walk along. The only good thing, I think the ground was quite soft, so it wasn't like one of these concrete places. Yeah, so kids could just run riot in there. I do remember though, I must have been about, I don't know, 4 years old or 5, and the kids had formed some kind of judiciary and police system, and I got picked up by some older kids and taken to a small shed where I was accused of breaking some kind of rule, and I was before a judge, another older child, and I remember crying and coming, and they let me go probably because they felt sorry for me. I'm not sure I ever went back after. So this, here used to be, there's two things here. There's buses used to stop here, I think 752. They used to stop here. It's their sort of resting place, and we would play on the buses. We'd go, get onto the buses while they're resting. I don't know if it was while the driver was there or not. So that was good. And this old building here, they used to do something with fur, because there'd be loads of these small offcuts of different coloured pieces of fur. Maybe they made toys or something, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, this little cut through is to Portobello Road. As you go up towards Notting Hill, Portobello Road gets a bit further away from Ladbroke Grove. So I just go down to behind where we used to live, just to see if I can get a view of any sort. Right, you can see the back of the houses right in the distance there. Ooh, I'll try to zoom in. There we go. That's going to test my steadiness of my hands. So that was what they look from behind. As I said, we overlooked what should have been a garden, I guess, but was just a rubbish tip. Now roughly where Portobello Road ends there, as you came up towards 5th November, bonfire night, fireworks night, whatever, maybe a week beforehand they'd start dumping wood, furniture, whatever in the middle of the street, so cars could no longer drive through. And by bonfire night it was, I don't know, maybe 15 feet high, and they set light to it. That was a bonfire in the middle of a through road, the Portobello Road. Again, I suspect they don't do that now. Shame. Right, so we'll head up Portobello Road. On the other side of this park will be Warnington Road, and they all go parallel. Warnington Road only goes as far as Goulburn Road. But fine old buildings, look. Oops. There we go. 1987, I don't believe that. This is the start of the inner city, really. Notting Hill was quite fashionable 20 or 30 years ago. Still quite rich. So you don't have to go far before you get into the poorer area. It all seemed very safe as well. Yeah, I say seemed safe. Mum and Dad were burgled a couple of times. Once my mum, she came in and saw a big black youngster standing in our place. She asked him what he was doing. She was afraid, and he said, "Oh, I'm just looking for Mr. So-and-so." Clearly wasn't. And he left. She thinks maybe one of the boys upstairs had left the front door open. He'd come in another time. I think another time another young West Indian man came in, I think while my dad was sleeping, but my mum was glad he didn't wake up in case he'd get beaten or whatever. I think that time their gas meter was robbed. It's very popular crime in those days, robbing gas meters. They were full of coins. Not really high class robbery, but you know, pays the bills. Just cross over, because one thing I do remember as kids, we used to, as I said, anything we could climb we would, and some of these places some of these houses outside, you could walk along the wall and we'd see how far we could get, you know, without going on the pavement. And for some of them, I can't remember names of them, the gate posts weren't so high, and we'd climb up onto one and jump across onto the other. If I'd seen my children at that age doing that, I'd have a heart attack. Used to be quite a few second-hand shops in those days, junk shops or whatever. I remember one on Mornington Road. There was about 3 of us little kids. We saw shoes. We'd go in, we'd be interested in asking them how much was this, how much was that, and for the shoes he said some amount that was too dear for us, obviously, like, I don't know, a shilling or 2. That's 5 old pence. And we said we'd have it. So we went all the way home and somehow managed to get hold of the money for the shoes. Went back, and he refused. He'd obviously been having us on, and I was quite gutted he hadn't kept his promise. It's all new down there now. I imagine it used to look like that, but now it's all smart flats. Don't look too bad, but they've got the same character. Some of these new shops look a bit like the second-hand shops that used to be here. Yeah, very similar. Golden Muse. Now, very nice, isn't it? When you get to this corner, this is Goulburn Road. This is where we did most of our shopping around here in the market. There's normally market stalls, but I don't know what days. But they used to be just from here onwards, really. If you go right, carry on right down Portobello Road, you go through the sort of local market area, and you end up in the tourist antique market area. Now this hasn't changed a bit, and I could remember this all my life, this corner. Toilets over there, the corner there. On this corner, I think this was the toy shop, and in the window there was a little train, model railway that just did a loop, and there was a slot in the window, in the windowsill. You could put a penny in and it'd start the train running for a bit. There were no pavement cafes when I was here. Most people couldn't afford to go to any restaurant or any cafe. Looks really good there, though. Definite improvement. And somewhere here on the left was the first supermarket we ever saw, and that was called Hawkins. Every other shop used to have to point at what you wanted, and the shopkeeper would get it down for you, or you weren't involved in the picking. But in Hawkins, you got a little basket and you went round and helped yourself. Makes me wonder which one it was. Probably one of could be anyone. Actually quite like the shops that have, the little corner shops that have taken over. Nice.
What? What's the damage, mate?
Good place to pick up some food. It's a sort of shabby chic. So this is Warnington Road. There was never much down there. Just that was kind of the limit to our wanderings. Over that way, you go over the bridge and you're out of the area, really. Let me wander back here. It's quite a nice area to walk around, and especially if you come a weekend, you can carry on down to the touristy Portobello Road Market. It's very crowded. Lots of Americans there. Well, probably not at the moment. Oh, I can smell fried onions. It's killing me. I think the area's got a nice vibe. Obviously the mix of populations, the ethnic mix has changed. It's a lot more Middle Eastern. I don't think there were any at that time. That's an interesting area. If anybody asks me where I come from, I think this is where I have my roots. Although we moved to Acton later, and I did like Acton, but I feel this is where I grew. Bevington Road. When that toy shop, I remember once seeing, I think it was I'm not sure if it was a toy boat or something. It was battery controlled. Might have been an airplane or and I told Mum and Dad I was going to save up until I had it. It would probably have taken about 4 weeks of saving my pocket money, and I was doing really well. And then we came down here with a friend or two, and outside the greengrocers there were cherries, and they convinced me to spend my money on cherries. So I never did get my toy. Got cherries though. Now, there was a convent up there on the right. I didn't go there except like with my mum and dad. We either wouldn't go because there's no market, or there's loads of market stalls and it's very busy, and so yeah, we wouldn't be wandering up there. Goulburn Road was the only place I remember getting lost in my life. I was probably about 5, and my dad would brought me along. He was going to a shop or somewhere, and I think he was reading his newspaper, because at some point we got separated. It was quite crowded, and there was a bit of a panic. I won't go further up Portobello Road. It's far too interesting for this video. These lovely old houses. If they're done up, they're very nice places to live. High ceilings, lots of big windows, lots of light. Even the basements probably get a reasonable amount of light. Yeah, I think 10 years ago I could have got up onto these and jumped across. Up this way all the roads are fairly similar. It's a nice area. I don't know, I did look at what the crime rate was like. I thought that I don't want to come back and be doing a thing about where I spent my infancy and get murdered here. It's not too bad for an inner city area. Obviously not as nice, as good crime figures as when you go further out, apart from the centre of the big towns like Uxbridge or Harrow, but not too bad. Didn't often wander down past here. Once when I was I don't know, about 3 or 4, we went down here with my dad and a couple of uncles, and we walked all the way to Notting Hill, and as the name implies, it is a hill, and so the last section goes up quite a bit. The only other time come down this way was 2 times. One, the dentist was over on the right, and it must have been further down because it had a little bit of a lead in from the gate. Nice converted house for a dentist. And the other times were there was a library, I think still is, up past the Westway flyover in the distance, North Kensington Library, and I used to be taken there by my mum. I remember you could I think you could borrow three books at a time, and you had to bring them back within like 4 weeks. And I remember once my sister Sue, she was probably only about 3, but she got books out as well, and she'd scribbled all over them in ink, and I didn't know what even at the age of 5 I felt so bad. 5 or 6 or whatever, I felt so bad and worried about taking back those books. I think we got away with it. Now I'll go over this side. I don't remember this area as well as the other side of Ladbroke Grove. We did come over here sometimes, but it was kind of slightly out of our patch. There was an outdoor basketball court. It reminds me, if I see West Side Story, at the start you see basketball courts like that, and we used to play British Bulldog. I can't remember the rules exactly, but it involved everybody trying to run from one end to the other without getting tagged. All Saints, St Charles Square. Now I think All Saints is a new school. More similar houses, but slightly grander, a bit more of a staircase going up. There's the fire station. Built-in church there. That looks older though. Perhaps the school was added on.